right, the machine is now closed. Clerk will tally the roll. 19 ayes, 31 noes. This bill has been defeated.
America's political landscape is shaking violently, and the tremors aren't coming from the Democrats, but from Donald Trump's own GOP allies turning against him. In a pivotal pre-midterm moment, Indiana has just dealt a major setback to the president's efforts to reshape the country's voting battlegrounds. On Thursday, Indiana's state Senate voted 31-19 to reject the proposed congressional districts, a map designed to tighten Republican control. And the real shock? This revolt happened despite Republicans holding 39 of the Senate's 50 seats in a state that has voted GOP in every presidential race since 1968. This signals an open rebellion inside the Republican Party, signaling growing fractures as Trump fights to consolidate power ahead of the midterms. 21 Indiana Republicans in the state Senate rejected Trump's redistricting push. They voted against the redrawn congressional map, which would have favored the party in the 2026 elections. A staggering 21 Indiana Republicans defied Trump, voting against the redrawn map that would have handed the party an advantage in 2026. 10 Democrats joined them, sealing the defeat. Here's the full list of Republican lawmakers who voted against redrawing the map ahead of the crucial 2026 midterms.
Competition is healthy, my friends. I firmly believe in fair competition. I always have said it before, and I will say it again. Regardless of political parties, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party, I've always believed that any political party on earth that cannot run and win based on the merits of its ideas is unworthy of governing.
I believe the bill on its face is unconstitutional.
We're not breaking any rules here today. I can assure you of that. Just doing something that we're able to do legally, politically, constitutionally even. Redistricting is about who is in charge. It's, to one of my colleagues' points, actually is about trying to predetermine political outcomes. Absolutely. It's a privilege policymakers have. Who holds the purse strings? That's what this is about.
Under the proposed map, District 1 would include Lake County all the way down to Wabash County. And while today's Senate District 4 in Porter and LaPorte County would be dropped into District 2 that stretches all the way down to Whitley County. These are entirely different communities with entirely different economies and priorities. I posted many town halls to hear from my constituents about mid-cycle redistricting. And not a single person could point to Whitley County or had any connection to it. It's a beautiful county, it's a beautiful courthouse, but I have yet to hear from a single constituent in Northwest Indiana that believes that they should be redistricted into the same community that votes for the congressional leader all the way on the other side of the state.
I love and appreciate the President of the United States. The forces that define this vitriolic political affairs in places outside of Indiana have been gradually and now very blatantly infiltrated the political affairs in Indiana. Misinformation, cruel social media posts, over-the-top pressure from within this state house and outside, threats of primaries, threats of violence, acts of violence.
Have you done anything to make sure these maps comply with the U.S. Constitution, racial gerrymandering prohibition pursuant to the 14th Amendment?
I believe that these maps were drawn specifically with political data and not racial data.
Inside the Oval Office, the environment was tense. A reporter asked Trump about the defeat shortly after it happened.
In Indiana, just a few moments ago, the Senate there rejected the congressional maps to redistrict in that state. A number of Republicans voted against that redistricting effort. You have spent a lot of time talking about this. The Vice President traveled to Indiana. What's your reaction?
Well, we won every other state. That's the only state. It's funny because I won Indiana all 3 times by a landslide. And I wasn't working on it very hard. Would have been nice. I think we would have picked up 2 seats if we did that. You had one gentleman, the head of the Senate, I guess, Bray, whatever his name is. I heard he was against it. He'll probably lose his next primary, whenever that is. I hope he does, but because he's done a tremendous disservice. I mean, think of it. It's a great place. I love the people there. They love me. You know, we won in a landslide all 3 times. Got tremendous votes. I got record votes. And then there's no reason for doing that. And the Democrats do it to us, so I can't imagine that they do it. But I wasn't very much involved. But there's a man named Bray, as I guess, head of the Senate. Was that Bray? Is that the name, Bray? I mean, I'm sure that whenever his primary is, it's I think in 2 years. But I'm sure he'll go down. He'll go down. I'll certainly support anybody that wants to go against him.
Indiana map row explained. Currently, Indiana sends 9 Congress members to the U.S. House of Representatives, 1 for each of its 9 districts. 2 of those seats are currently occupied by Democrats. However, Republican leaders in the state had proposed a new map of congressional districts that sought to disempower Democratic voters in the state, clearing the way for conservative candidates to claim all 9 seats in next year's midterm races. The proposed map was part of a nationwide effort by the Trump administration to defend Republican control in the U.S. Congress. Notably, Texas, Missouri, Ohio, and North Carolina have enacted new maps which are favorable for the GOP, while California, in response, okayed a map favoring Democrats. However, some Republicans had expressed displeasure with redrawing of map ahead of the vote itself. Senator Greg Good criticized the over-the-top pressure from inside and outside the state. Vice President J.D. Vance had been on 2 visits to Indiana, and lawmakers were also lobbied by President Trump into voting yes to the redrawing. Meanwhile, in a major setback to Trump, more than a dozen Republicans sided with Democrats to overturn one of POTUS's most sweeping executive orders. 13 Republicans supported Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, who forced the vote using a procedural move known as a discharge petition inside the House of Representatives. The chamber voted 222 to 200 to push forward a bill that would undo Trump's March order, a directive that stripped collective bargaining rights from nearly 1 million federal workers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Protect America's Workforce Act would overturn President Trump's executive order from March that ended collective bargaining rights for roughly 1 million Americans who work for the federal government. Since the order was made, the administration has ripped up more than 700,000 union contracts. The order was the largest act of union busting in American history, and it left our federal workforce more vulnerable to unfair treatment and political interference. I'm proud that since introducing this bill, it's won the support of 226 of my colleagues in this chamber. This majority includes Democrats and Republicans who recognize that collective bargaining is not a partisan issue. It's about fairness, dignity on the job, and a voice in the workplace. In his order, President Trump said ending collective bargaining was about protecting our national defense. But in my district and many others, affected workers build our warships and care for our veterans. These workers make our country safer and stronger every single day. America didn't vote to silence these workers, but this bill gives all of us a chance to restore their voices. Every one of us in this body was sent here by our constituents to represent their voice in Congress. While the majority leadership has broad prerogative to set the calendar and control the flow of legislation, no one here believes they should have absolute power to determine which bills see the light of day and which don't. The discharge petition process exists to give members of Congress some agency. It's a release valve to ensure that good bills with broad support cannot be held up forever by a leadership team. It gives us a fair shot at building a coalition to do the people's work and get an up or down vote on the floor. That's exactly how my colleagues and I have spent the past several months. We've built a bipartisan coalition representing a majority of the House in support of this bill and done the work to bring it to the floor. I know that none of us ran for office with a vision of governing by discharge petition. Most of us long for the return of regular order, where bills are assessed in committee, seriously debated, and given a vote. But here we are. As it stands, we must use every tool available to do the people's work. I'm grateful to my 8 Republican colleagues who co-sponsored the bill, led by my friend Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, and to the 5 Republicans who signed the discharge petition to ensure that this chamber would hold this vote. If the majority we built over the past few months sticks together, we can overturn this union-busting executive order, and we can show America that this body will protect workers' rights. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the rule. Let these workers have their day on the House floor. Give them an up or down vote. They deserve that much.
Refer to the Committee on Foreign Affairs and ordered printed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In a close vote, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted.